What if you only needed to plant two kinds of fruit, just two, to have something ripening in your backyard from the middle of summer almost to winter? Not exotic, not fussy, not something requiring a greenhouse, a spray schedule, or an orchard the size of a field. Two fruits most modern backyards ignore because neither one fits neatly into a grocery store supply chain. Here's the problem with how most people plant fruit. They buy one apple tree, one peach tree, maybe a few berry bushes, and every one of them gives up its crop in one short burst. For 2 or 3 weeks, you are buried in fruit. Then the tree is empty, the freezer is full, and the rest of the year, your yard produces nothing. That is not a flaw in fruit growing. That is a flaw in which fruits got popular. Because there are two trees that can turn one short harvest into a long seasonal relay. One starts the season early, the other takes over as everything else is shutting down. And the first one is the fig. Most people think a fig tree means one tree, one variety, one harvest. That is not how figs work. There are hundreds of named fig varieties, and they do not ripen together. Some begin when summer is barely underway. Others peak in the heat. Some wait until most fruit trees have already finished for the year. So the secret is not finding one magical fig. The secret is building a calendar. Start with an early variety. Ronde de Bordeaux is a small dark fig with intense berry-like flavor, and it is one of the earliest varieties for many growers. In a long, warm growing season, it can begin near the end of June or in July. In cooler areas, it may be more like late July or early August. Either way, it is the opening act. That first ripe fig is important because it changes how you think about the whole tree. You are no longer waiting until late summer for every fruit in your garden to wake up. You are starting the harvest while most people are still checking whether their tomatoes have turned red. Then come the mid-season varieties. Celeste is a classic in warm, humid places because it is productive, relatively reliable in rain, and has a brown sugar sweetness when picked truly ripe. Smith is another favorite in southern climates, often described as rich, jammy, and strawberry-like. White Madeira No. 1 can carry the season later with large, deeply flavored fruit. And figs are not just different colors of the same thing. Some taste honeyed and light, some are like berries, some are thick, dark, and rich enough to taste closer to fruit jam than anything from a supermarket clamshell. Once you start trying them ripe from the tree, the dried fig most people know barely feels like the same food. By the time summer begins to fade, late varieties can take over. Col de Dame Blanc, Italian 258, and Martinenca Rimada are examples of figs that can carry fruit through September and into October. But this is where people make a mistake. They see an exciting late variety online, planted in a short-season climate, and then wonder why it holds beautiful green fruit until frost ends the year. Martinenca Rimada is a perfect example. It can be spectacularly late and productive in a long, warm season, but it is not a universal fig. If your summers are short and autumn cools down early, it may simply not have enough time. The tree is not bad. The calendar is bad. If you live in a shorter growing season, prioritize early or mid-season varieties. Ronde de Bordeaux, Celeste, and Chicago Hardy are safer places to start. Or grow late varieties in containers, bring them out as early as conditions allow, and move them under cover if an early frost threatens. That is the difference between randomly buying a fig tree and designing a fig season. Plant an early fig, a mid-season fig, and a late fig, and instead of getting one overwhelming dump of fruit, you get a rolling harvest. A few ripe figs every few days, one tree fading as another begins. Fresh fruit for months instead of one panicked weekend spent making jam. And figs have one more unfair advantage. They grow fast. Most fruit trees are grafted. You buy a young tree, plant it, and wait several years before it really begins paying you back. If you grow many fruit trees from seed, you may wait close to a decade just to see what fruit you have. Figs are different. Take a healthy dormant cutting in late winter, roughly the length of your forearm. Put it into a moist, rooting medium. Give it warmth, patience, and enough light once it wakes up. A solid percentage of those cuttings can root without grafting, without expensive equipment, and without any real mystery. That is why fig varieties have survived for thousands of years. Not because every grower had a nursery. Because someone tasted a fig they loved, took a branch home, rooted it, and passed that exact tree on to someone else. A favorite fig could travel through whole neighborhoods, one cutting at a time. And here's the strange part. A fig is not really a fruit at all. It is a flower turned inside out. More precisely, it is a structure called a syconium, a fleshy chamber lined with hundreds of tiny flowers. Each one can develop into a tiny fruit, all held together in the soft thing you eat. So when you bite into a ripe fig, you are not eating one simple fruit like an apple. You are eating a whole hidden cluster of flowers and fruits in a single package. But that unusual structure is not the reason figs ripen over such a long season. The calendar comes from variety choice, growing conditions, and sometimes two distinct crops. Some fig varieties make an earlier crop called the Braba crop on last year's wood. Then later, they make a main crop on new growth. Other varieties focus mostly on the main crop. That is why one fig may give you fruit early, while another tree in the same yard has not even started thinking about ripening. Before we get to the tree that finishes the season, tell me something. Have you ever eaten a fresh fig that was actually ripe? Not firm from a plastic box, not dried. I mean soft enough that it almost bursts when you pick it. Because if your only fig experience came from a supermarket, you may never have tasted what a fig is supposed to be. Figs can carry you from summer into early fall, but eventually, even the latest varieties slow down. That is when the second fruit takes over, persimmons. Ask most people what a persimmon is, and you will probably get a shrug, yet this may be the ultimate fruit tree for extending a backyard season. Persimmons ripen later than almost anything else you can grow. Some begin in autumn, others hold fruit through November into December, and sometimes even later with careful storage. There are three main roots into persimmons. First, Asian persimmons. These are the large orange fruits most people picture. They include Fuyu, Hachiya, Jiro, and dozens of others. They tend to have the biggest fruit and the most familiar eating experience, but many Asian types need milder winters. Second, American persimmons. These are native to North America, extremely cold-hardy, and capable of growing where standard Asian persimmons would struggle. Their fruits are often smaller, but when fully ripe, they can be intensely sweet and rich. And third, hybrid persimmons. These combine Asian and American genetics. A variety like Nikita's Gift gives colder climate growers a chance at larger fruit with more winter toughness than many standard Asian trees. That means you do not need to live in a warm southern orchard to use this system. A warmer climate might grow Fuyu and Hachiya. A colder climate might use an American persimmon or a hybrid. The names change, the timing changes, but the job stays the same. They fill the part of the year when almost every other fruit tree has gone quiet. Now, there are two main eating experiences with persimmons, and confusing them is how people decide they hate the fruit forever. Astringent varieties such as Hachiya are inedible while firm. Bite into one too early and the tannins grab every drop of moisture from your mouth. It is dry, furry, sharp, and unforgettable in the worst possible way. One bad Hachiya can convince someone never to touch a persimmon again. But let that exact same fruit soften completely until it looks almost overripe and feels like a small bag of jelly, and it turns into fruit custard. Honey, apricot, brown sugar, and soft jam in one spoonable fruit. Non-astringent varieties, such as Fuyu, work in the opposite way. They are meant to be eaten firm. Slice them like an apple. Eat them while crunchy. They are sweet the moment they turn orange, with no waiting and no guessing whether the fruit is soft enough. And here's where people will argue with me. Most gardeners believe frost makes persimmons sweet. It does not. That is a complete myth. Persimmons do not need frost to ripen. Astringent fruit will naturally soften and lose its harsh tannins on its own schedule, even in places that never see a freeze. But here's the part people get half right. Cold weather can speed that softening process. A light frost, or even a freeze followed by thawing, can help push astringent persimmons toward that soft, sweet stage. So frost is not the magic ingredient people think it is, but generations of gardeners were not imagining the change either. The fruit was already going to ripen. The cold just helped move it along. Persimmons also give you flexibility that most fruit trees do not. Fuyu-type fruits can be picked firm as they color up, then kept in a cool place while you eat them gradually. Astringent fruits can hang longer on the tree, or be picked and allowed to soften indoors over days or weeks. That means you are not forced into one giant harvest day. You can eat the season slowly. There's one practical detail that matters before you buy a tree: pollination. Many named Asian persimmon varieties can set fruit without a second tree, but crop size and seed development can vary by variety, and some trees perform better with a compatible pollinator nearby. American persimmons are often male or female trees, so a female fruiting tree may need a male somewhere close enough for bees to do their job. Do not guess. Read the label. Check the exact cultivar. Know whether you are buying a self-fruitful tree, a female tree, or a pollinator. That 1 minute of research can save you years of waiting for fruit that never comes. Now place figs and persimmons on the same property. The figs are your summer and early autumn fruit. Early varieties begin the season. Mid-season trees keep it moving. Late varieties reach into fall where the climate allows. Then persimmons arrive just as the figs are fading. Their leaves can drop, their branches can go bare, and the orange fruit can still be hanging there long after peaches, plums, apples, and berries have finished. In a long growing season, that can mean fresh fruit from around late June or July into December. In colder climates, the total window may be shorter, but it can still be dramatically longer than planting one apple tree and hoping for the best. Neither tree is completely maintenance-free. Nothing living is. Figs can get rust, especially in humid weather. Birds will find the ripest fruit. In some areas, fruit can sour after heavy rain or attract insects once it splits. But compared with peaches and plums, which can demand constant attention for brown rot, insects, and disease, figs are remarkably forgiving. Persimmons can also attract wildlife. Deer, raccoons, squirrels, and birds understand ripe fruit just as well as you do. But once established, persimmons generally ask for far less spraying and intervention than apples, peaches, or pears. Both can produce for decades. So why are two trees this useful missing from so many yards? A truly ripe fig is almost impossible to commercialize. The best ones are soft, heavy, sometimes splitting slightly at the eye, and close to turning into jam. That makes them incredible on the tree and terrible in a supply chain. A ripe astringent persimmon has the same problem. The soft, custard-like stage that makes it special is not the stage that survives a truck, warehouse, shelf, and another week in your kitchen. So stores sell fruit firmer, earlier, safer, and often less flavorful. That is why so many people think they do not like figs or persimmons. They have only met the version built to survive transport. Grow them yourself, and there is no truck, no warehouse, no 3-week delay between harvest and eating. There is only the branch, the fruit, and the exact moment it is finally ready. So if you only had room for one new fruit project, which would you choose? The fig that gives you the first taste of summer? Or the persimmon still hanging on a bare tree when everything else in the yard is finished? Pick a side, fig or persimmon. And if you already grow either one, tell me your variety and your growing zone. The answers might help someone else avoid buying the wrong tree for the wrong season.